So my personal story about my entry into menopause is quite different than a lot of women. I didn't go through a lot of perimenopause, which is the stage in your life where your periods start to get less of them. Maybe they aren't as heavy. Perhaps they are more heavy. It's just a period of your life where you start to notice symptoms of things not quite being the same tickety-boo as they always have been. You might get tired a little bit more. You might get grumpy. Some people have hot flashes. That was not my experience, but I had some other things that I'll tell you about. And some people are in that for quite a long time, 10 to 12 years, and others of us are in it for a very short time or a moderate amount of time, 5 to 6 years. So that perimenopause beginning of your body changing is totally normal. It doesn't mean that your health is fading at all. It doesn't mean that your life is fading. It doesn't mean that you're going to be any less of a woman or any less attractive. None of those things. Vibrancy comes from within. It comes from our attitude, and how we take those things in stride is a big part of it. But a lot of that is learning how to mitigate those things, or even what they're all about. And there's a lot of things. There's tons of things out on the internet and in bookstores about menopause. And so it can be overwhelming. But let me tell you, my story was the complete opposite. So I went into menopause at 39. I went to my doctor and I said, I haven't had my period for over a year, and I'm not concerned about it because my experience was that having my period all my life really wasn't a big issue. I never had one cramp. I know, I'm sorry for those of you that have had many every month and have taken to bed. I mean, I have friends that have spent 6-7 days in bed every single month, like no kidding. I have friends and family that have had such heavy flows that they couldn't go to work. And I just kind of skipped through all those years pretty carefree. I think a lot of it is genetic. Looking at the women in my family, we all kind of have the same pattern, and that is a very light flow for very few days, and it kind of comes and goes without a big deal. Never stopped me from doing anything, never was taken into consideration for trips or for camping or for, working, none of those things. So I went to the doctor at 39 and I said to him, I have always had a light period and blah, blah, blah. He knew that, but I haven't had one for a year. I said, should I be asking you any questions or what? And he said, okay, well, let's just take a blood test and see where you're at. It sounds like you may be going into menopause. You're probably in the perimenopausal stage. So I said, okay, got my blood test back, and I was in full-blown menopause, like at the very top. Like I had no more of the necessary hormones in me that keep you, going through perimenopause until you get to that point. So I wanted to know more. And I mean, I didn't know much about it. People were not saying the menopause word at that time in the news media, on social. Well, we didn't have social then. There was nobody talking about it except the occasional kind of old women's group, the older people. And they weren't really saying the word menopause. They were calling it, your time of life or whatever. And to mention it in front of a man, I mean, that was just absolutely a no-go. I probably didn't even talk about it with my husband at the beginning, but I wanted to find out what was going to happen with me. And because what I had been having for many years is these electrical surges. So I had no hot flashes that I can remember where, you get a sweaty bed at night and you just feel like you can't bear being there without taking off all your clothes and stuff. But I had these electrical surges all through I'd say from my 33 on. And sometimes I kind of wonder if my daughter Claire was a miracle child, because my body seemed to, like looking back now, knowing what I know, I think my body started going into perimenopause like in my early to mid 30s. So I would have these surges at night where I literally felt like my body was just like vibrating, and just like somebody had put a cord from my body into an electrical outlet. and it would just go zzz, and I didn't obviously hear that sound, but I felt it inside, and I felt like my body was getting fried. And sometimes it would last for a whole minute, because I started to time it over the years. I mean, this went on for years. And sometimes it would be like for 5 seconds, and I'd get this zzz, and it'd go away. I'd count 20 seconds, zzz, and go away, and I'd count another 20. So it didn't have any kind of pattern to it over the years. And sometimes it would leave for months, and other times I would have it pretty continuously. So because I didn't know what it was, and I asked my doctor, I asked different people about it, nobody had ever heard of it, experienced it. I kind of started to not tell anybody about it because I felt kind of crazy. I thought, this just sounds like I'm making something up. And so that's where I was when my doctor announced to me that you're in full-blown menopause. So he put me on HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and I was on that for a year until there was this big, crazy fear that being on HRT was going to give you breast cancer. Now, many years later, as more studies have come out and more news has come out and those old studies have been looked at, those were completely kind of bogus. It was bogus data, because they had been studying women that were 64 and older and who had a history of breast cancer in their family. So at 64, you're into menopause, like you should be. A lot of people will be out of it by then, but these were women that were still kind of in the height of menopause, hot flashes, and they'd been put on HRT, but they had an increase in breast cancer, but that was because they had a history of it in their family. And it has since been proven again and again that HRT does not increase the chance of breast cancer. I don't have that fear in my family. So that is nothing that I could have not been on. And when I went to see my doctor, I was about 51, and I kind of started to hear about different hormone therapies or progesterone. You should be on progesterone, and some people were using a cream, and menopause was starting to be talked about a lot more than it had been. And people my age kind of started talking about it as well, and I didn't feel so lonely. But when I went to my doctor and I said, hey, could I go on HRT again? Because it helps with a lot of things. And he said to me, but you've been on it for the last 11 years. And I went, no, I haven't. You took me off. And he said to me, oh, that was a mistake. And that was my life, like 11 years of my life of not having something in my body that would have helped me a lot. Because what I went through in my 40s was that I had bone density scans every single year for about 6 years. Now they won't give them to you more than 3 years at a time, a space of 3 years. But because I was not only in full-blown menopause, but my bones were deteriorating. And so I had gone into what's it called, before you get osteoporosis. And so they were just watching my scan, and I started to run. I love running. I started to really keep tabs on my health. I lost weight. I just did everything that I could possibly do to mitigate the danger of getting osteoporosis. And when I was running and doing all those things, I actually built my bones quite a bit. And of course I was on a lot of calcium and magnesium and all the different things they give you. But having that hormone replacement therapy in me all those years would have really given me a different foundation than I have today. It would have helped my bones. It would have helped my structure. It would have helped my skin. What I experienced when I was 39 and I went to the doctor and he said, you're in full-blown menopause, was that I looked down at my legs and my thighs, and the skin on my thighs was all crepey, like an 85-year-old, a 90-year-old. And I was aghast, and I laughed because it was kind of funny to look at because my body was still young. But that's never changed. And so I've seen those signs of premature aging throughout these years. And what do you do? I'm not going to sue the doctor. That doesn't really happen in Canada anyway, much. And he'd made a mistake. He was human. He thought I had been on something that I wasn't, and so sorry for me. So I've just had to kind of work with that myself and figure that out. But I have another story to tell you. So tune in, and I'll give that one to you.